In the spirit of reconciliation, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples today. Welcome to Totally Lit, the podcast celebrating reading, writing and creating literature. I'm your host, Ky Garvey. Thank you for listening. Janeen Brian, welcome to Totally Lit.
Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to be here.
I'm so thrilled. I feel like I've got a bit of Kid Lit royalty with me tonight. You've got 110 books, and
Yes.
I did read that you've written scripts for Humphrey.
Do you remember Humphrey? Do you? A lot of
I'm of an age where I was the prime audience for Humphrey Bear. So.
He was a delight, absolute delight. I still love Humphrey Bear. He's still around, but when I go out to schools, and I mention Humphrey Bear, there's these glazed eyes staring back at
Sad,
me. It's such a shame because he was such a lovable character, wasn't he?
Yeah, I once, when I was a very little girl, they had Humphrey come to our local town. I lived in Warragul in Victoria, and
Right.
I was only about 3, but I was enraptured that Humphrey was there.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Humphrey changed many times because it's obviously he was going on for a long time. But whoever was Humphrey always made me feel warm inside. Whenever you watched him, he just had that lovely, warm character that was so necessary in television, but also in life as well too. Whenever he met anyone, like meeting you or something, he was just such an amazing character. They did have other characters later, but I never felt they had the same charisma or warmth that Humphrey had. I think he was, out of the box, quite frankly. So yes, I did write. I think it was about 10 or 11 scripts. I fell into that, like I've fallen into a lot of things by sheer chance, and the television world actually wasn't really for me. It was a bit fast and furious, and I'm not a fast and furious person. So, but I did love it. And when you were writing for them, you actually had to take into account the songs, and it was very, very much a case of think of those children sitting in front of that television. So you had to come up with ideas that were both active and then passive, and bring in craft ideas and so on. And a lot of those things you had to do yourself, and I had fun. I really enjoyed doing it, and I've still got them recorded, and one day I'll have another look back at them again. Yeah.
That's such a fond part of my childhood, and even like Mr. Squiggle and all those,
yes,
which they're considered old school these days. But
no, but there was such a beautiful, innocent but clever idea behind, I think. Yeah, I'm very much in favour of another Mr. Squiggle.
So now I've probably fangirled enough over Humphrey Bear.
All right, fine.
I'll say thank you, Janeen, for being part of our childhood. I think that's lovely. But we're going to talk a bit about your latest book through Allen and Unwin. Would you like to share about your latest release?
Yes, I'd love to, because it's receiving some lovely comments, and that's always heartening because, as any author, as you would know, you write something and then you wait with bated breath to see if the readers and the reviewers like it as much as what you hoped they would like as. And with this one, Somewhere You Can Dream is the title. Somewhere You Can Dream. The title was very, very difficult to come up with. Originally, it wasn't even a picture book. It was a poem. And it was a poem that I wrote, and I think I was very much in a dream-like state. I don't mean I was, zombieing or anything like that, but I was sitting very comfortably in my back room, and I was looking out at the back garden through the windows, and it was just such a very pleasant, contented feeling, and I started thinking about places where you can feel like that, and that's how the poem evolved. But when my agent, Dean Blacklock, saw it, she not only liked it as a poem, but she really saw it as something more. She saw it as a book. So at that stage, the poem was called My Place, Your Place. In other words, I was saying, here's where I feel comfortable. Where do you feel comfortable? But that sort of went through a fair much, the evolving of that title was quite difficult. And when we've all agreed on Somewhere You Can Dream, we were sort of cheering hallelujah because we felt that that was the right title. The whole story, well, it's not really a story. It's like it's an exploration into places both inside and outside where you just have that lovely feeling that this is the place you want to be. This is the place you feel contented, where you can feel your blood, your mind just settling and relaxing and just enjoying whatever it is that you're enjoying. And you could be on your own, you could be with someone else. It doesn't matter. Most people would say it's when they're on their own, but the cover shows the main character, who is a little girl, and she's flying a kite with friends. And to me, that's just a beautiful, beautiful cover because it starts off in a sort of a windy, wild, outdoor place, but with friendship. And for me, almost the kite is, I don't know if the illustrator Hilary Tapper meant this to be, but it's like the kite symbolised a flight, a freedom, a joyousness. Then you turn over the page and the end papers have been included in the story beautifully because the little girl leaves that place of flying kite with her friends and she sets off on her own, the kite under her arm. And as we turn the page, even the half title page shows her peeking through like almost a bower of greenery. And that's when she sees the first little spot. And originally I had the poem saying, I love, but the publishers thought it would broaden the whole idea if we said, evoked a reflection on for the readers. So it starts off now with, do you love shadowy secret nooks? And it's a
I
beautiful
do.
day. Yes,
You've
aren't they?
drawn me in already.
Do you love shadowy secret nooks? And the little girl is peeking through and she can see it's a beautiful double page spread of a tiny little bower, I guess, with all sorts of coziness about it. And it goes on, do you love shadowy secret nooks or cozy hideaways? Leafy shady trees or sheltered rocky bays? So it goes on like this, and every double page spread shows a different child, and they're all content. They have lovely, contented expressions on their faces, sometimes with a bit of wonderment. Sometimes there's a puppy dog, or they're doing something like playing cards or just climbing ladders or leaving them leaning against a tree, just looking up. And the sheltered rocky bays are those lovely, those beautiful rock pools, and you feel as though the rocks around you are sort of sheltering you, and this little world that you're peeking into, the rock pool itself is like a world. Oh, it's just like a beautiful world, and you yearn, I think, sometimes to see if there's a little creature in there. But even if there's not, there's that lovely sense of that water, the shadows, the reflections, everything about it, and it's very calming for the mind.
Mm.
It goes on with all sorts of other places too, Ky, and then right at the end, brings it back to the girl herself. So she's opened it up for the readers, and then she said, "But if I had to make a choice, I'd choose a smaller spot where I could sit, just me alone, and dream and think a lot."
That sounds very peaceful. I
It
feel
it
like
is.
you might have met me as a little girl.
It
Really
is.
taps into that exploration of imagination and play. Have you test run reading the book through to an audience of children? Yeah?
I have only once. We had a very small little launch, and it was with early literacy, early learning centre, I should say, early learning centre, and I felt that they loved the story, and I showed them pictures, expanded pictures of the illustrator and how she was doing it. They were probably just a wee bit too young for it, I felt, but they were saying things like, "I love being in my cubby," or "I love being cozy on wet days, but then I'll go out and splash in the puddles."
Mm.
So they were getting the feeling of it, I think, and that's really what this poem, I think, is about, is getting the feeling of being away from that rush and hurry and just being able to just settle in somewhere that is just so lovely and peaceful. Recharge yourself, great for mental, you know.
We are living in a different world
We
now
are.
where everything is rushing around and everything is quick, everything is reels, everything is.
Yes.
Are you finding that you having to adjust your writing to the changing world of kids, or are you finding that they are still resonating?
I think they're still resonating at this point, but I'm finding myself thinking harder about what I'll write.
Mm.
And perhaps that's in answer to your question is whereas before I would think of something and write it, now I think, am I getting to that audience of today that is very different to what I knew and what, has been around for a long time. So, yes, I do think that I give it more thought. And yeah, I think perhaps not so much not confident, but there's that element of, will I hit the right market or will I hit the right target because of this change that we're all experiencing?
And have you noticed any change when you're sending things through to your agent or when it gets to the publishing team? Is the experience still the same, or are you sometimes
Mhm.
feeling they're asking you to adjust to the way the world is at the moment?
Not with my books, I don't think, at this stage. The last few have been with early childhood.
Yep.
So I think that probably, keeps things on an even keel pretty
Mm.
much. So the next couple that are coming out next year are also in that vein as well. So previous to that, it was chapter book and a novel. So I haven't gone back to that area for a
Mm.
long time actually now. So whether I will or not, I don't know because the book before that was called Are You the Easter Bunny, which was once
Yep.
again about bilbies. And then the one before that was I'm a Dirty Dinosaur, which was a hide and seek board book. So they were sort of in the younger area, which I think is sort of not stable, but you know what I mean? There's not so much of the element of change as there
So you
is
think
for.
the fundamentals are the same at those levels?
Well, I feel so. That's my feeling anyway. So when I'm writing for that age group, I do feel as though I can write on that level. Yes, probably more so than the older children at this point. But who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I never know what I'm going to write next. So,
Sometimes I write things and I'm like, oh, that was a surprise. That wasn't where I was expecting to go. Uh, you've got a good track record. You've got a lot of books out. And so your experience in some ways might be a bit different from an emerging picture book author that is
mm.
attempting to get attention in the market. It sounds like it's a bit of a collaboration in terms of that you've got that feedback that perhaps a new author doesn't necessarily get before they're published. Does it feel like is it nice to work with a team? I guess is what I'm asking.
I guess in a way, I suppose because I've got a bit of a track record now, that I do feel comfortable talking to the publishers and so on. But it's not that I ever expect that I'm going to be treated in any other way than when I first started out. No, I'm just trying to think. I know that what you get from them more is they have more of a particular stream of thinking.
Mm.
It's has to be if it's not commercial, it's
Yeah,
a
I
no,
think that's one
no,
thing that
no.
I still need to learn is
I
I
think
think I've got some great stories. Like, oh, maybe
yes,
they won't sell.
yes,
And then
exactly.
getting an idea of what will sell.
Yes. Yeah, I heard a publisher mention the fact that, when they were going to receive some books soon, that you've got to say to yourself, "This is commercial. If it's not, I don't want it." That's a hard thing because how do we know
It's
really
hard,
what is
right, to trend, really.
commercial, And, you're working from an element inside you, and you do get this sense of you've got to actually tread such a middle ground. You've got to sort of realize well that, yeah, you have to appeal to a market that's a commercial market, and the publishers will give you all the reasons why, because they are making that if, you don't, then the book won't sell. The book will be, sent back, or the book won't be even make it past acquisitions, or it won't even get past the first reading. So
Mm.
I think that is probably the hardest part. And of course, as we all know, the celebrity status that is taking over the
Yes.
world. And
Well,
that's
they do have a bigger reach. In some ways, I can see, well, it makes sense because the sales are there, but it does feel challenging when you're a little artist just trying to get
yeah,
yourself established as,
yeah.
"Oh, I don't have a million Instagram followers. I don't dance on TikTok."
No, exactly, I think that's a hard thing to get past because earlier we didn't have that challenge. We
Mm,
didn't have to ride above that tide that seems to have been sweeping in at the rate of knots. And I think to myself at times, well, why don't you just stick to what you're doing? If you're
yeah.
doing your celebrity thing well, stick to that. Heavens, leave us some space. It's
It's a bit
people.
multi-pronged, though, in that those books are also keeping kids engaged and
Yes,
keeping parents buying books, and so
yes,
we
I
do
know.
need multiple people to be writing, so
Yeah,
everybody has their
yeah,
kind of book out there. But yeah, it does sometimes feel a bit like, hey,
I
we're
know. And the
still
other,
here.
yeah, I know. And the other thing is too that some of those books are not very good. And that is very disappointing when all of us are trying our very best, all
Mm,
of us are trying to make the best book for children.
yes.
And that sort of, sticks in your throat a wee bit. So, yeah, I agree, there's all these, multi pronged facets to it. And it's all about accountability and keeping books out there, but keeping books out there, the publishers need money.
Yes.
And,
Well, we need them to stay publishing if we want to be published as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's the same old thing, isn't it? We hear it all the time. It's going round and round in circles all the time. But I think it's just, yeah, I think it's, well, I used to say, and I still do, that writing itself is hard fun.
Mm,
I just think the fun is getting harder.
it seems to
Uh,
be. But I think also, like, this is a job that it isn't a given, if you know what I mean. Like, we have to write our book to the best of our ability, but
yeah.
then we have to be submitting. And sometimes that does feel like, especially if you're getting lots of rejections,
Mm.
and you're like, "Oh, I thought that was good. I guess it
Yes.
isn't." But then you'll go to a critique group or you'll ask someone to read it, and they don't really give you anything that needs to change.
Mhm.
And there's a whole other side of the industry where you don't know if the publisher has just received the same kind of manuscript that they've
Mhm.
just accepted. I did see a book that came out today that was similar to an idea that I just submitted to an agent. Like, "Oh, no,
Mm.
I don't think I'm gonna
Yes.
get that."
Mm.
But you do have to just have a lot of different ideas and a lot of different stories.
Yeah.
Do you still get rejections, Janine?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, I get them all the time.
Think
Yeah,
think
it's heartbreaking.
it's hard work seeing when you have rejection, 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 then a
Yeah.
little hint of something good happening,
Yes.
and then it doesn't quite go through, and then it's
Yes,
it's a career where there can be a lot of no for one yes, um,
exactly.
but it takes resilience, I think.
Yeah. It does. It
Yeah.
takes a huge amount of resilience. And I do think that, they talk about finding a tribe. I do we've got a lovely group that I'm part of. It's only 4 of us, but quite honestly, they we need those people to, bounce against because they're all going through the same thing and they do understand. And whilst they can't necessarily change anything for you, they can offer, suggestions about your work and so on and so forth. But I just feel as though otherwise you're in this loneliness, and this loneliness can be even more devastating, can't it? If you are getting constant rejections, you don't know why, and you've got no one to sort of whimper in the corner or weep, So yeah, I really do think that when I first started, I there was nothing even like it, writers' centres or anything like that. So to suddenly find people who were in groups or, Squibby and all of those, CBCA, all of those kind of places that you could actually find people that knew what you were talking about or hoped for you and you hoped for them and so forth. It does give you some kind of uh, sense of security in a way that you're not the only one. But yeah, that resilience is a big thing, isn't it? Persistence and resilience. And sometimes when you're at the lowest of the low, if you don't write another thing, you really, really are, curtailing your own, you know, setup because who knows, that next one might just be the one.
Yes,
And
it could
so,
just be around the corner.
absolutely. And I have a little rock that a friend wrote for me. She said, when I think of you, Janine, I think of hope.
Oh,
And so
that's lovely.
it's written on the little rock. And so I have that by my bedside. So every now and again I hold the rock and I just remember the word and hope. Yeah. Yeah.
I needed to hear that. Thank you, Janine. It
Welcome.
it is interesting because I'm interviewing authors nearly every week at the moment who are having various levels of success.
Yeah.
But I seem to be having guests that are doing greater and greater things. I'm like,
Mm.
oh, I need to lift my day
Mm. Mm.
and get writing a bit more.
Yeah.
Although I find sometimes the challenges in life can affect your progress in terms of sometimes you need to be able to connect with your imagination and get into that flow. And there's
Mm.
our busy lives really get in the way
Mm.
of that. But you've been able to be a full time writer for a number of years now, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I was involved in teaching
Mm.
up until 1990, and then I made the decision. I had been published quite a bit, and I made a decision that if I don't do something, I had this little motto, and it said, "Look before you leap, but if you're going to leap, don't look too long."
Yeah.
And it was sort of, yeah, it's nice, isn't it? And so I leapt, but I also had some financial security at that stage, well, reasonably financial security, and that I think made a big difference. But I wasn't prepared either to simply coast along as a hobby writer and let my husband, pay
Yeah.
everything. I was really determined that whatever I wrote and whatever market I chose, and I wrote greeting cards, I did everything to make sure that I was working the writing muscle, but also feeling my way into what areas I worked best and received my best, acceptances and so forth. Now, that doesn't always pan out.
Mm.
Times change, as we know, but I think that sort of the determination is what has held me there all the way along. And so from 1990, yes, I've been full time writing. So apart from going into schools and doing workshops, I don't teach as I used to. Yeah,
So it does appear that you are diversifying all the time and writing in different genres and moving
yeah.
from picture books to novels and
I think that's
that.
just me, though. I think it's
Yeah.
just me. Yeah, I'm. There's part of me that admires people who say they're a novelist or they're like one of my dearest friends writes picture books, and she says that's all she will ever write, and she's brilliant at it. but I think sometimes I leap a bit
Mhm.
from whatever to whatever, but also I have been asked by publishers to write certain things too. So that always inspires me, and I find that I can adapt to, sort of from the picture books right up to novels, although I don't delve into YA, I don't delve into anything past a 13,
Mm.
10-year-old really, because that's not my area. I don't feel comfortable in it and far happier with the younger audience, the younger readership. So, yeah, that's where I tend to stay. Mm.
So do you have a bit of a structure to your day in terms of having a bit of discipline around your writing?
I used to more so than I do now. Mostly, I try to, I do try to write something every day,
Mm.
and often I will do a 3-page where I just let everything just rattle along. Uh, Often I will get up and, like, I will wake about 6 o'clock and I will just rattle through emails or whatever, and then I might, sometimes I might read some poetry, or sometimes I might read a little bit of the novel or whatever I'm reading at the time. Then I will, likely as not, look at what I'm writing at that moment. But whereas before I would write pretty well non-stop, and then either in the afternoon I would do research or I would do something connected. I go to the library and read, you know, I don't do that as much, but I feel as though I'm still balancing my time and getting as much value out of what I'm doing at the moment for where I am. Yep. So I feel comfortable about what I'm doing. And at times, yes, I think, well, you could do a wee bit more, Janine. Come on. But, at that time, and I do other things as well. And I'm trying to get that nice balance where, they say writing is your job. It shouldn't take over your life.
Mm.
And I think sometimes when we're so determined and we are, so persistent, it can become the all-encompassing thing that can sometimes be a bit detrimental to the other things in our life.
Mm.
And so, therefore, whilst I I do believe that I've worked hard and I will always work hard, I'm now allowing myself a little bit more leeway.
Mm.
Once upon a time, I would never step out of the house to go for a coffee or anything like that. I was really, really strict with myself, but that's not the case anymore. And this that I don't drink coffee anyway. So
No coffee. Oh my goodness.
I'm a tea drinker. Yeah,
I've got a
but
cup of tea right next to me now, actually. But it's
uh,
going cold because I'm more engaged in our conversation.
yeah, yeah. But no, that's so, and I also create mosaics, and I have a studio down the back, and that's sometimes a nice place to go to sort of work with my hands and let the creativity of that side. You know, I don't consciously think of my stories when I'm out there. I've got chooks alongside in the pen alongside, and I like listening to the birds, and perhaps that's sometimes just as good for the writing brain
Mm.
as trying to push through. Although there are other times where I think if just another word, just another sentence, and you might, you know, click onto something that's good, you know? And that old thing about, you write something and it sounds fantastic when you first write it, and then when you read it again, it doesn't sound quite as good, you know? But I think that's just the nature of creativity and the nature of what we do.
Well, I think
So,
our thought is such an important part of writing, and we forget that that's half of what we're doing is
mhm.
imagining, thinking.
Mm,
And sometimes
mhm.
that can happen away from the laptop or away from your
Yes,
notepad. Um,
absolutely.
and so when you're living and enjoying life, that's when the stories seep in as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I think in a way that actually connects really well with my latest book, Somewhere You Can Dream, because perhaps I was actually in that state, in that zone of not writing, but staring out of the window. And my back garden is lovely and green, and it's got fruit trees and flowers, and it was a beautiful day, and it just sort of gave that mellowness that I sometimes find when I look at some of my books that I felt came easier. It was often at a time I knew I felt in a different zone in other times when I've written other books, which have been equally as successful. But I know in myself when I was in the zone that those books had a certain something, whether anyone else notices it or not, but I certainly do. And this is one of them. This is one of them. And I know that when I showed it to a teacher librarian, she said I got goosebumps. So
Right.
they're getting that incredible reaction. So there is an emotion,
Mm.
I think, that comes through the book. And when you see the illustrations, they are absolutely beautiful. Hilary Jean Tapper is a New Zealander,
Mm.
and she is very much a person who believes in her own self calmness. She is also an outdoor person. She loves climbing the hills at the back of her place. She's grown up with childhood little shadowy nooks, as we talk about, and hidey holes and cubby houses and dreaming places, and yet and you can feel it when you see the illustrations. You can feel that that's who she is too, and so there's connection, which is lovely when you get the illustrator and the writer almost in that same zone. She's coming from the illustrating visuals, and I'm coming from the words, and she took to the words
It's
just like
wonderful when the illustrator just gets you, like, because I think the
absolutely, and wonderful
magic
that the
then.
publisher actually recognised. I think
Mm.
that's brilliant too, because the publisher could have, thrown a dart and it might have landed on another person, and it may not have been quite as it is now.
Well, it's part of the art of creating that beautiful end product is that there's
Mhm.
you've provided the beautiful words and then your publisher has read it and gone, "I think this person will be a right match for
Mhm.
the illustration." And I imagine that they put a lot of thought into that as well.
I would think so too, because, when people say, "Do you do the illustrations?" which they do quite often, and I think
It's
to
a
myself,
question I get all the time.
it is, yes,
Like, no.
well, illustrations, and I you sort of feel a bit like you've been thumped in the stomach a bit. You because, "No, I did the writing." But at the same time, the illustrations are what the younger children particularly see,
Yes.
first of all, and what captures their imagination, so they like to think that, you did the whole lot, and I guess that's what you have to sort of come to terms with, but, no, when you sort of see what some people can bring to a book, I just take my hats off to illustrators, I really do.
I
Mm.
was absolutely thrilled to go through that experience because I was just in awe. Like, I would not have thought of the illustrations that my book had.
Easy peasy, yeah.
And oh, yes, easy peasy.
Yes, yes.
And it yeah, it just
That's right,
looked
you would.
so beautiful to me, and I was like and it's certainly I don't have an aesthetic skill set at all.
Mm.
I'm definitely a writer.
Mm.
And so it just I was, yeah, just really amazed and I think when you see your first book ever for the first time as
Mhm.
well, there's a magic about that that you can't
Mhm.
explain till it
Mhm.
happens to you. But I was like, "Oh, every page is beautiful. Oh, this is"
Mm.
and a whole story weaved into those illustrations that is the illustrator's own story as well. Like I
That's
was,
right.
yeah, I loved that process. So,
It
hopefully
is
there's more
amazing.
ahead for me, but
Yes, I hope so too for you too. People sort of say, "Do you but why don't you illustrate? Surely you see the pictures as you are writing it." And I said, "Well, look, if I really think hard about it, I think I'm writing from the feelings that I'm
mm,
getting. I'm perhaps writing through the eyes of the characters, but if you imagine Vaseline over your eyelids in a way that I can sort of see something, but never as clear or as sharp or as amazing as what these illustrators do."
My
Mm.
mum is an artist, and I always remember sitting watching her when I was a little girl and amazed that what she was seeing in her head was then
Mm.
coming out through her hand.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm stick figures at best.
Yes.
So to me, it's really interesting that there's such a different part of someone else's brain that is activated
Mm.
when they're illustrating. Um,
Yes.
but I do love the whole joint process of
Yes.
writing and illustrating together. It's fantastic.
Mm. Mm.
So if you went back to when you first submitted your very first manuscript and had your first book published, were you expecting a lengthy career like this? How would you think that
Well, I
younger
don't
Janeen would feel about?
yeah, I didn't you see, the thing was that I never expected to be a writer, and I know a lady I knew called herself an accidental author,
Mm,
and that's how it sort of seemed to me, like, I talk of my growing up time as sort of very, minimal books,
mm,
minimal reading, no libraries as such. I didn't know anything about really the structure of books or anything really. And it was only when I was teaching and one of my teacher colleagues said, "Look, there's this conference and this person's going to sort of do some writing, teaching things. And do you want to come with me?" And I said, "Oh, yes, all right. Well, I have been doing a bit of writing, yes. Nothing much or startling or anything. I had never sent it anywhere." And so in the end, she pulled out, and I thought, "Oh, there's that little bit
oh,
of a there's
you're
that
not
little."
going to go.
I went,
It's like a
I went.
sliding doors, mate.
That's right. So I went, and the first thing that this particular we all had to write something about. And it was a mixture, so you had people who were writing articles for caravan touring and, it was a whole mixed bag of people, and I was terrified. I was on my own, and there were all these people, and when I knew that one person had actually had an article published, well, I just about quivered, and I thought to myself, "My gosh, this is, too much advanced for me." But anyway, when I wrote something, the lecturer or the teacher said, "More, please." And
Oh, that's a good sign.
those 2 words were just amazing.
Mm,
So, I actually ended up writing and self-publishing a story about 2 women who were in my childhood, very, very influential to my childhood. But as far as getting anything else published, it was really because it was luck. It was luck because I knew a person who was also a teacher who also had started his own educational publishing company,
mm.
and that was Era Publication here in South Australia. And so I just wrote something and said, "What do you think?" And of course, he said, "Well, no, but would you like to have a try at doing this, this, and this?" And he actually helped me get started because it was educational. I felt like I had some feeling of it being a teacher. I
Mm.
had some sort of sense of it, but also he was quite happy to, help me along the way. And I ended up writing quite a lot of all sorts, from craft books to novels to picture books to all sorts of things. He would provide the brief and I would trot along with it, and we got somewhere. So that was sort of the first kind of entrance into writing, which is, and I really still didn't ever think that I was going to be a writer. I never, ever, ever thought to myself, because I was still teaching at the same
Mm.
time. And then, as I said to you, in 1990, I decided I was going to flee. And so I left teaching and just concentrated on writing books. And as far as my first, I got all sorts of chances, I think. There was another person who was a historian, and he was asked to write about South Australia's early colonial days, and he didn't want to take it on. So he said, "Do you want to take it on?" Well, we didn't have computers. I'd never done research, but I loved it. I loved it, even though it was hard work and I had to rewrite it many, many times. It sort of went down very well within this series. So I sort of found as if I could, I was getting there little bit by little bit. So, and that's how it's actually been. So I never ever, and I find I have to bite my tongue when people say, "Yeah, I'm going to be a writer, and this is what I'm going to write," and I sort of, as if it's a foregone conclusion, they sort of have this idea that it's going to
Oh,
be a massive,
easy.
yeah, it's easy, and it's going to take the world by storm, and all the rest of it, and it is very different from
Mm.
that. And I
And I
guess
think
in a way,
remembering that there's growth over time, you're learning your craft and getting
yes,
better, and
yes, yes,
that does take years. And
it
like
does.
all of us do have talent, but there's also a lot of work that gets put in to get to the point
Absolutely.
that you're at. Um,
Absolutely.
is
Yes, I
that
did a lot of background work. There used to be things that I would print out each day. It was a not exactly just a prompt, but it was actually exercises, and I would go through those exercises daily. This is what I meant by trying to learn my craft because I didn't know anyone or didn't know. And I used to go to the library and get the 801 books and read voraciously and try to do it myself because I had this credo as well. If it's to be, it's up to me. And so I thought, well, this is how I've got to go. I've got to work on my own. So that's how I sort of started, and I guess that stayed with me a bit too, yes.
so for emerging or aspiring authors, do you have any tips on how to get started or how to, I guess, also persevere through those? There are dips in our careers where we're
Mm,
getting
mm.
rejections as well.
Well, as far as writing to start off with, I think one of the things that I found when I was first starting too was, and I still enjoy it in a way, is actually getting a passage of someone else's work that you like and handwriting that passage.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
yeah, and as you write it, it is amazing what comes to you because you're not frantically typing, you're writing it, and so you actually feel as though you are in that person's thoughts and worlds, and you can see why they've used that word, or you can see why they've paused, or you can see where it's leading, and it gives you a little bit of insight as well as writing practice, but it gives you an insight into why you like that passage and why those words worked and what feeling you got from it. And I I used to enjoy that so much, just doing that. And it could be a picture book, it could be a novel, it could be poetry, whatever, but just handwriting those words. So I would suggest that if you haven't tried it, give it a go.
Tried. I do read
Mm.
other people's work, especially when I'm not great at dialogue and it's something I want to learn. So I'm
Mm.
reading like well-published authors that are great at dialogue to soak
Yes.
that
Mm.
up. But I
Yeah.
hadn't thought about handwriting
Yeah.
a passage that way, so
Ye
I'll give it a
and the
go.
other thing, yeah, the other that's right, and the other thing is too, is reading finding another passage or same passage or whatever, and actually listening to yourself record it.
Mm.
Because as you're listening to yourself, you're actually taking it in through a different way. So this when you're writing it, it's gonna come out to you in one way, but when you're listening to it, it's your voice, someone else's words, and it's somehow not osmosis, but that kind of thing, and done regularly, I think that can be that kind of brain help.
Yes.
So
I often read, like, I'll write my picture book, but then I will read it aloud as if I'm reading it to my own child, although mine are
yes,
adults now.
yes,
But because part of what I'm trying to create is that experience of that story time at night where
yes,
you get to the end of the story and the audience wants to hear it again. And so
yes,
that's what I want to create. And I have had a few people say, "Oh, we're reading Easy Peasy every night because that's the favorite at the moment." And
yes,
that's like the best compliment you can ever.
it is
And it's like, oh, and
absolutely.
but it's interesting how even if a story resonates with a child in that way, there is so much that can affect the reach of your book in terms of things like the size of your publisher, the distribution lists it can reach, and so that and what libraries it might be in. And so you do get wonderful responses of, oh, my child wants to read this story every night, but it might not necessarily translate in sales.
No,
I
that's
find it an
yeah.
interesting industry in that way, that
Yeah.
the bigger
You have
publishers are better to get to because they've got that wonderful reach.
mm,
I do love the smaller ones as well because we
absolutely,
need them.
absolutely. Oh, we do. We absolutely do. But, there are some things that well, not some things, many things that are beyond our control.
Mm.
And so that's why hope and persistence and resilience are just the things that you've got to nurture in yourself constantly. And if you need people around you to help, you know, keep you sane, make sure you have them because there are so many things that you cannot have any mark on at all. You're quite powerless in so many of those ways. So yeah, and you have to be so proactive. I think
Yes.
you
I think
really, really do
you
have to
need to
be.
become your own PR machine,
You
which
really
I was
do.
not ready for at all.
No, no. Well, we don't, as people say, we don't sign up to do that. We sign up to write or illustrate, but we do have to do all these other things as well. And I think the thing is that we do have to think about ways to reach people that will reach them first of all and will gain their attention
Mm.
second, because there is so much out there, isn't there? So you have to be quite innovative as
Yeah.
to how you can get through and you know become someone that someone recognizes or someone who's read a book of and likes that story and you've got another one and so they want to read that one too. So it is hard fun. Yeah.
Now I have another question just for my listeners and maybe your readers to get to know you a little bit better.
Mm.
Is there anything about you that we would find surprising that we might not know about?
I find surprising. Oh, I'm very good at killing flies. I have an innate ability to track the mind of a fly, and I'm the best person around. I get them, pretty well every time. Some with a fly swat, but some just not near, more so with a fly swat. But yep, I've done it with my hand as well. And it's almost like I'm, yeah,
We've
that's one
found your
thing.
killer instinct.
Yes, yes. Make this fly. Yeah. No, so that's one thing that could be surprising, I guess, but something else, oh, isn't that terrible? You put me on the spot now. Fly killer, what else? Well, I guess there's no surprise in the fact that I love nature because a lot of
Mm.
this involve nature, but I'm absolutely besotted with trees, and wherever I drive, my husband must put his earplugs in because I comment on every aspect of every tree that I pass by. And birds and flowers, so constantly looking up, and I do love all that, very much so, yeah.
And you
Um,
did mention some future books. Are you able to share anything with us
yes,
about those?
well, one particularly is called Water Baby, and that's coming out with HarperCollins, who also did my book, Are You the Easter Bunny?
Mm.
And so HarperCollins are publishing this book called Water Baby, and I think it's September next year, 27, and that is with my friend Danny Snell. Now, you probably know of Danny Snell as a wonderful illustrator. He did The Truck Cat, and he's also illustrated my book, Little Chicken Chickabee, which did very well too. But he's also a swimming instructor,
Okay,
and
so that's a
this
good match.
a very, very good match, and so I think he's gotta get some artwork in by the end of July this year, and said he can't wait to get into that. So well, he probably has started already, but because he teaches little ones as well, and mine all came about when I was doing some swimming, and I was watching how these teachers teach the little ones. You
Mm.
might have myself, and all the games, Humpty Dumpty jumps off the wall and they catch them and things like that. So I sort of welded that all together because I loved watching the children. I love watching the young children learning and just the joy that they have in those early activities and the joy the parents or the grandparents who were in water or carers, whoever they were, it was just such a wonderful time, and everyone was splashing and laughing. We had some cries, of course, but, the way they would dip them under the water and bring them up and they'd come up like this little waterfall, and it was delightful. So I've written that, and that was in rhyme, and that was taken up fairly quickly too. So that one's coming out. And then, I haven't got a contract for the other one, but I know who the illustrator is going to be, and I know it's going to happen. So that's coming out next year as well too. So I've got two more in
Oh,
the
wonderful.
pipeline, which is lovely. And also the other thing that I must say is that I love writing for the school magazine.
Mm,
I have I it's an absolute joy. A, because they're the most wonderful team to work for and with. Over the years, I think I've written for them over 30, 35 years or whatever, and still writing with them and for them. And so there are poems and stories and articles and a few plays. And I love it because they will take a range of things. And
yes.
I think that suits my personality and my writing ability too. So it doesn't mean everything gets accepted, but over 200 pieces have been accepted in,
Wow, well
yeah,
done.
in the
That's a
past.
lot of words, Janine. If you think
Yes,
about
yes,
over the years how many words you've written, that's a lot of
I know,
words.
I know, and I just love writing for them. I just have an absolute joy, and I'm looking now in my office at all the magazines sitting in folders with little tags where I've written what poem it is, so that I know if I pick it up that I'm going to be able to turn to the page if I'm reading it to
Mm.
children or whatever. Yeah, so that's another area that I enjoy writing a lot for.
I see them when they open up for submissions. I'm like, I should submit something to school magazine, and I'm yet to do it, but I'll put it on
Oh,
my
give it a
radar.
go. Give it a go because, when you realize that there are 4 different age ranges and you don't have to select, they select which magazine it would go in.
Right,
And
okay.
yes, and so you could be feeling a poem coming on, you could be feeling a story coming on, or an article or something, or a play or something like that, or what they're looking for at the moment is persuasive texts.
Hmm.
So that's very big in the school, and of course they are aligned very much with the New South Wales Education Department. So they are very, aware of helping teachers help children, reading and writing, exceptionally good at that. And, I admire them. They're a wonderful, wonderful body, and they are a magazine, or it is a magazine that's lasted
Mm.
over 100 years, whereas others have
Oh, that's a good track
fallen
record.
by the wayside. Yeah, so I say clap, clap, clap for School Magazine, and, yeah, it's a joy to write for them too. Yeah.
A big shout out to School Magazine, all
Yes, yes,
those writers out there, check it out if you're looking
yes,
for somewhere to
yes.
submit some work.
Mm.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Janine. I feel reinvigorated after our chat because I do go
Oh,
through stages of going, oh, so many rejections. I've got to
I
shake
know,
myself up and keep
I
going.
know, but we all have them, and we still have them. We still have them. Even the people in my group still have them, and they're very published writers as well, and I have them too. So, you just buckle up for the ride and,
Yes. There
and
are
on.
times when I just accept it and go, well, real authors get rejections. Every
Yes.
rejection keeps me
Yeah.
feeling like a real author.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, I think you do need a yes every now and then, though.
Oh, you do. You really, really do. And that is where I will, I will point out the school magazine again. That is where you will find out very quickly whether it's a
Yes.
yes or a no. So, whereas you have to wait for such a long time with
Yeah,
publishers
it can
to get,
be a slow
yeah,
burn.
to get, yeah, absolutely. So to get that little, oh, yes, yes, maybe try the school magazine, and then you know,
Yeah.
if it works, you'll get a yes, and it'll be something that will just keep you going, that little stone of hope.
I'll add it to my list. I have a few goals that I set out for myself each year of
Mhm.
what I would like to achieve. So I'll
Right.
add that to my list and then
Yeah.
see if I can get a yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that would be one thing that I would suggest also to emerging writers as well. Look, you can subscribe, you can look at what they are writing or what they're accepting and so forth. Illustrators too.
Mm.
So, look at that. But I'd say for I think also to get started, I know that I wrote a lot for competitions. I still go in for
Yes, I do that.
all of those kind of things. It makes you feel, even if it doesn't get accepted, makes you feel like there is a purpose.
Yes.
There is a purpose for you to write. And if that does, yeah, and the number of things too that I have written that didn't get accepted that later found a home.
You can
So
repurpose stories. It
yes,
may have just not been the right fit for that
yeah.
particular competition
And
or
and you learn, as you said before,
mm,
you are always learning a craft. I'm looking at all the self-help book kinds of things that I've got up here. I've got Michael Morpurgo, I've got Joy Cowley, I've got Margaret May, all these people whose books I've read, they all learn the craft too. And that's what we have to do. We all have to do it all the time, I think. Yeah.
amazing. Well, thank you for imparting some wisdom with me. It's been great to chat, and I've been thrilled that you've come on the pod, and I can't wait to see your next book.
Thanks so much indeed for having me. Lovely to talk with you also.
Thank you for listening to Totally Lit, and don't forget to go out into the world to read, write, create, ignite.